Year, Fulhamish watchers, listeners, Fulhamish gang. We are in the Old Suffolk Punch following Fulham's 2-1 defeat to Reading on New Year's Day. I'm joined by a lovely Farrell monk.
Happy New Year, Jack.
Happy New Year.
How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm not too bad. Unlike Fulham, who appeared to be suffering a New Year's hangover as Parker Ball was royally rumbled by Reading. Not a good result, that, Farrell, by any stretch of the imagination. I think that when you look at that in isolation, it's just all sorts of bad.
Yeah, I mean, I did say in the week that, and it did look a bit silly at the time when basically I said if the three players that went off against Stoke are still unavailable for today, that I'd probably take a draw. And to be honest, when I saw it back this morning, I thought, oh, what am I talking about? But halfway through that game, I was like, oh, maybe it actually had some legs to it after all.
No, absolutely.
Because basically, and when, we saw throughout the game, like those three players dropping out of the team, we were on actually starting to build up a little patch of form, and then there's a bit of inconsistency again.
It was a really weird lineup, I think, and the moment you looked at it and you saw, I wasn't sure if Knockout was going to be in the 10, if Bobby Reid was going to be in the 10, if AK was going to be playing as a second striker. It was all sort of up in the air, and we tried to make the best of it we could, but ultimately it was very much, let's see what happens when the game started, and Fulham lacked cohesion, I think, almost right from the off.
Yeah, well, I think actually in the first 15 minutes we actually looked pretty bright, to be honest, and full of energy and full of running. And the focal point, and who is very central to that, is Harrison Reid. And unfortunately, when he went off, it all went. And I'm quite glad to see Matt O'Reilly come on.
I thought he had a good game when he came on. And my first question, I think, to you was going to be who comes out of that with any credit, because Fulham weren't good today. I think you look at it and you go, Dennis Adoy did quite well, forced back into it centre half. Harrison Reid only got 10-15 minutes before he was injured. Steph did okay, but Bobby Reid did all right. But apart from that, you can't really look at that and be like a whole load of players came out with buckets of credit. But Matt O'Reilly came on and did all right.
Yeah, he did fine. I was speaking to a mate of mine after the game, and if you look at the game in isolation, you look at the two teams. There's only really from the Fulham team, you'd only really look at one player who you would take from the Fulham team and slot straight into that Reading team, and that would be Bobby Decordova-Reid, the only one with a real extra bit of quality today. The rest of them, I don't think so. Would Knockout get ahead of Haria? No. Would Mitchell?
Haria was probably the best player.
He was exceptional. Him and Tyler Blackett down their left-hand side were, we were struggling for some time.
It's mad, that, isn't it? We're talking about this, like Tyler Blackett, converted centre-back, playing at left-back, and just like galloping away down the wing, and you're like, what is going on here? How has this come?
Reminiscent of Dan Burn all over again, isn't it?
Don't talk to me. Don't mention that name around me. Look, they scored. There was a chance before Reading went 1-0 up, where Fulham had seemingly 4 shots blocked on the line by what appears to be an unbelievable bit of goalkeeping. But that was the big chance, and then Reading sweep down the other end, first attack of the game for them, and they score, and that's becoming an all too familiar kind of caveat with Fulham this year. Like, teams will batter teams for 10 minutes, won't score, and then they'll have one break and the ball will be in the back of our net.
Yeah, and it is so frustrating because obviously, and I haven't been able to watch it back, from my point of view it does look like the Kamara hits the post from a seemingly impossible angle.
Yeah.
But I do need to look it back anyway. But we were finally getting ahead of steam and whatnot, and then we were putting a bit of pressure on, and it actually comes from another counter-attacking play from Fulham and Johansson, which is brilliantly intercepted by the aforementioned Andy Robinson of the Championship, Tyler Blackett, and they break away, and it's brilliant. I know.
So sad.
And it's brilliant play from Haria, and excellent movement in the box to then was swept home.
It's just frustrating, I think. We go ahead with 79% possession, I think Sammy put on the WhatsApp at half-time, and yet, apart from that big opportunity, we didn't dictate the game. We didn't really, there were interchanges in the middle, and this is kind of what I was getting at when I said that Fulham weren't cohesive from the off. In that there was all these little interchanges, but they just always break down one pass too soon, and Bobby would lay it off, and AK would charge through, and then suddenly someone would forget the ball, or
Well, it basically stems from the fact that we're missing probably one of our most, the one who's got the real quality in that 10 position. That's Tom Kearney, of course.
Yeah.
And there has been a little bit of criticism creeping in from our captain, but it shows that when he doesn't play, we are lacking that real bit of incisiveness and real quality in the number 10 to really feed excellent balls through.
It felt like quite hot-headed today, and Kearney is quite calm on the ball. And when these little interchanges, it was all very frantic and frenetic, and suddenly you just need someone to put your foot on it and be like, nope, there's the ball.
Yeah, well, I did write in my notes that we were too urgent when we didn't need to. We rushed play when we didn't need to, and we weren't urgent enough on the ball when we needed to, when we should have been. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we'll get on to the second half, and we're broken down straight away. It's one of those things where obviously Cyrus Christie gets skinned, too easily beaten, in my opinion. But marking two men with Knockaert nowhere to be seen down the wing, and it's the exact opposite of what we saw, like you say, down the left flank for Reading, where Ajari and Blackett were helping each other out all game. And, you know, Christie is left facing both of them by himself. Yes, he shouldn't get skinned, absolutely, and rightly so, hands up. And I imagine he'll be the one to put his hands up and be like, my bad. But where is Knockaert? What is going on?
It's amazing because like Knockaert is probably the person that actually runs the most in the team and really gallops up and down that right side and does actually offer quite a lot of energy. You know, I didn't think that Knockaert had the worst game he's ever had. He's not had his best game.
I thought he huffed and puffed with very little end product, and also I think something that was really weird with Knockaert was the way that he seemed to get into the Reading fans obviously were on him all game. No idea what that's about. Very strange.
They just need someone to.
They just I mean I think
they thought he was Lucas Piazza.
There was one of those, isn't it? They're over land and sea and Oxford. Which I enjoyed, but it was, you know, they do need someone to hate, and it was Knockaert. But you know what, fair play, because it actually, you know, he started shooting from mad distances, he started pinging balls over the bar, and you could see that it got to him, and he was obviously ready to try and score and run up the other end to celebrate in front of them, but it just didn't happen because he was so frantic all the time.
Yeah, he does play with a little bit of panic stations all the time when he's got the ball. Sometimes it works out well for him, sometimes it doesn't. He's sometimes really good when you don't expect him to be. You know, reminiscent of Kamara, you know, the old Kamara kind of thing. But he's such an enigma, Knockaert. You know, how do you get the best out of him? What's quite strange is that some of his corners he was putting in today were absolutely exceptional.
The back post where he like hangs it up right under the bar at the back post is an unbelievable delivery.
And
it's the aforementioned Tyler Blackett that knocked it out.
Exactly. But his crosses from open play are, you know, they were pretty toilet today, to be honest.
I mean, they've been quite toilet for quite a long time, actually. It's one of those things about
But at least he does play with a bit of drive, like, you know, more so than any other player today, apart from Bobby Decker-Reed. Like, I don't overall.
Quietly in love with him. I don't know what to do about it.
Quietly.
just look at him and be like, yeah.
But I don't think it was that bad a performance. I do think that we had quite a few chances. They only had 3 chances and they scored 2 of them. You know, that's the way they played. That, you know, the other day when they beat Preston, I think it was, they had like 17% possession and they won 2-0.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a way of playing, and it's obviously working for Reading. Find themselves now 3-4 points outside the playoffs, and like we said, we just saw the table before we started recording this. Millwall are in 6th. What? Like, what's going on? How have Millwall got to 6th?
This league is ludicrous.
It's very topsy-turvy, and, you know, we're still in 5th. I think, you know, they had it right. The automatic spots look so far out of touch now. But this playoff mix is going to be chaos from start to finish.
Yeah, I'm still got nightmares that we're going to getting Brentford in the playoffs.
I'd almost rather finish 7th.
Not to give them
than play Brentford in a playoff final.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like genuinely terrifying.
Yeah.
But you know, that's how it is. Look, we scored. Obviously, Cavallero came on for Joe Bryan in what seemed like a strange substitution at the time. Parker went to this 3 at the back with Knockaert and Cavallero as wing backs, which he does when he's chasing games. I thought it left us ludicrously exposed again. We scored, yes, but again, a bit of individual brilliance from Cavallero rather than any sort of systematic thing. And when we panic, we go long, and it doesn't suit us. No. And, you know, Mitrovic, one was against 3 gigantic centre-backs in Morrison, Moore and Miazga, the Triple M comparison for Reading. But not only that, even when Mitrovic did win things, there was no one around him because people weren't expecting him to win things because he was against 3 gigantic centre-backs. So it doesn't make sense to go long if you're not going to put people around him. If you need to go long as a strategy, fine. If it works, fine. But you have to back it up with some sort of like get players in and around Mitrovic if you're going to play the ball into him like that, because it doesn't make sense otherwise.
The unfortunate thing is that we don't really, with Kenny not there and Reid not there as well in the centre of the park, Harrison Reid that is, trying to play through those lines is very, very difficult, especially since when they brought on that extra defender and then they had their two sitting Pele, who was absolutely exceptional today, sitting so deep. There was no more than 5 yards in between defence and midfield for them. It's so difficult to play through those lines if you don't have a player like Kearney who can literally unlock doors like, you know, a cat burglar, basically.
Interestingly, how different were Reading today to the side we played at the Majewski earlier this season, who were, you know, dysfunctional, didn't have any sort of system going on, and Fulham breezed through that game. And today, Reading were look, they're not pretty side to watch, but they're well organised, they're disciplined, and, you know, they made life hard for Fulham, and it paid off, and that's 4 wins on the trot for them. This is working. Whatever this system is, like you say, 17% possession against Preston. I reckon, you know, similar amounts today probably by the end of that. And yet they have 6 points from those 2 games. And
you know, they're utilising their best players, which is, you know, basically their front three. You know, Meite and Luka João, who loves playing against Fulham for some reason. It's just unreal why he keeps doing that. The weird thing about it was that obviously we're getting exposed so much on the flanks, and then Scott Parker decides to revert to having 2 wingers playing as kind of like wing backs. We're going to get even more exposed. It kind of worked though. I suppose they didn't. We still
I'll be
created.
hesitant to say it worked because I think something that kind of summed it up for me was when the substitution went off and when Brian went off, Bobby Reid just threw his hands up in the air and was like, "Where am I playing? Like, what am I doing?" And it was like, who knew where anyone was playing? Who knew? By the end, it was kick and run. Like, you know, it very much was. No one was playing in any positions by the end of the game. It was just try and throw the kitchen sink at them. And Ben Jarman tweeted, you know, you can't do this in this league. You can't have one style of play and then just like abandon hope and just throw everything at a wall when you're not working, and you can't keep coming from behind. And he's absolutely spot on. There's no plan B. There's no, you know, plan A hasn't got an identity. I'm not sure what plan A is, but there's definitely no plan B.
Yeah, well, you know, our 2 most successful managers in the past decade, Roy Hodgson and Slavica Jokanovic, they didn't really need a plan B. They had a plan A. They knew how the style of play worked. Any player that came off and another player that came on, they knew exactly where they wanted to go. The only times that we ever have a plan B is when we're defending a lead and we go 5 at the back, and that works. That has worked on numerous occasions this season.
Yeah, no, it has worked this season.
But
I don't like it, but it works, so fair enough.
Exactly.
Like,
but do we necessarily need a plan B for when we're sort of going for the win? If you can chuck as many attackers on the pitch, I don't know. It seems it's not a system. I'm not advocating it, but that's just the way the team are. But it does. You can certainly see the amount of times like brings players on. I saw Bobby Deckard over Reid put his hands up and go, well, I don't know where to go, and people are going. Kamara seemed to pop up in numerous positions.
I don't know what AK was doing today. I can't remember him making any sort of positive difference in at any point, apart from he made a tackle near our box at one point and let it go out for a goal kick. And honestly, I think that's the only thing off the top of my head I can say that AK did well today.
Well, the first 15 minutes he looked like a world beater again, and I was just absolutely loving him. And then as soon as the game changed, he just fell back into his usual kind of firecracker routine of just going off, and you know, he wasn't productive. Every time he had a chance to shoot, he didn't. Every time he had a chance to cross, he didn't. It wasn't a great performance. Parker shouldn't be able to rely on things like that. You know, when he came on against Brentford that time, it was another woeful performance. I was delighted to see him, you know, really create things in that first 15 minutes. But we got to really look at ourselves here, and you know, we can't afford to have so many inconsistent players in our squad. So, you know, Parker's obviously got to look to the real sort of experienced ones to sort of go in there, because if you're playing with a plan A, you need those players to play with a lot of quality every single, you know, for the full 90 minutes.
And we, you know, Harrison Reid going off was a body blow because of the way he controls the middle, but just one of those things where you can't have an entire system reliant on one player. That's not how things work. And yes, the midfield 3 during our promotion season were a unit and they played well together, but we had Ollie Norwood who could come in and slot into any position. It didn't really affect the team. You know, we were talking about a player that came on, brought real quality wherever he was and was able to like boost it up. It's not if one of those players is injured, we're absolutely wrecked. You just play Norwood there and it was great.
Yeah,
but now when someone gets injured, like Harrison Reid, we fall apart. And weirdly, and something I didn't think I'd be saying a couple of weeks ago, when I saw the 3 players out today, Mawson, Kearney and Onoma, I was probably most upset about Josh Onoma, who I think has been like improving game by game and recent offering something. So, you know, that's how quick it can change, right?
Yeah, you can see like what players like Onoma and, you know, to a certain extent Christie as well, that when that confidence grows and the shackles are off, they play with such freedom. They're not so worried about the ball. They're playing like not a great pass that's intercepted and the crowd get on their back straight away. It shows what a little bit of I thought Christie again, it did take him a long time to, you know, to become an influential player in the team today. You know, maybe about 20 minutes before the end, he started really sort of driving the team forward, even when he was playing as a centre back.
And this is what I mean. This is all part of it, right? You have Christie, who's like an attacking wing back, playing at centre back. Like, what's going on? Like, it is one of those where it just doesn't quite add up yet, and all the component parts are sort of all over the shop for so much of it, and that's what worries me most.
Well, I think the one thing that Parker, to his defence, like, he just cannot legislate for the amount of injuries there are. Obviously, the system really relies on Harrison Reed being fit, but you think about it, if Harrison Reed drops out, you've already got, like, Kevin McDonald or Harry Arter. Word on the street that Harry Arter was supposed to be back for today, but didn't quite make it, so hopefully we'll see him on Saturday. And to be honest, an Oliver Norwood type player just does all the simple things well. I mean, Matt O'Reilly, he looked a bit nervous to start off with. He didn't really do anything with a bit of ambition.
It was a hospital pass. The first ball to him was an absolute hospital pass. I was like, oh, ease him in, lads.
Yeah, exactly.
But it did take him about half an hour or so, deep into the second half, to actually sort of play with a little bit of ambition.
Yeah, and then he was subbed.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was a bad pass from him that led to the second goal, actually, as well. But to be honest, I think all the midfield three were responsible for a lot of bad balls. Johansson in particular was the amount of I really like Steph Johansson. He's not a totally shithouse player. He's got a lot of technical ability. He's got a lot of quality, as he's shown on numerous occasions. But I think the fact he's come into this game cold, he hasn't really played a single minute in 4 games, and he's come into it a bit cold, and the amount of times he got the ball just outside the edge of the area, and a lot of his passes were wayward.
Yeah, I thought he was the only person driving us forward for a lot of the game. That was the only reason that, I thought Steph did okay, and I agree with you. There was a lot of wayward passing. There was a lot of wayward passing from everyone today, if I'm perfectly honest. But the way that Steph got the ball and always looked forward is such an asset to the game, and especially when we're chasing things, Steph is the one that gets the crowd going again quite a lot by just turning and driving. It's not hard, it's simple stuff, but he's the only player that does it.
He spent a lot of the time though coaching Matt O'Reilly through the game. I don't know if you noticed from where you was, but from where I was, the amount of times Johansson was in and around him and he was telling him to move, get away from me, give me an ankle, which is great, but not, you need a bit of, he needs to concentrate on his own game. I think some of the problem is the fact that Harrison Reed and Steph Johansson, they play really well together because they both can play 1 and 2 touch passes straight away, and that really does help the team drive forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Harrison Reed played two balls, to my mind, that were literally played through the lines, went out to Bobby Reed, one went out to Kamara, and really drove that team forward. But again,
you lose that, obviously.
You lose that when he goes off. Hopefully if Arter's back, and hopefully if Reed is not a serious injury, then
fingers crossed. Final thoughts then?
I don't think it's as bad a performance as probably some people might make out. I'm still definitely Parker in. We did create quite a lot today, and on another day we probably should have got a win, but can't legislate for all the injuries at the moment.
I am wavering in my faith in our head coach, purely because of our system, and I just don't understand. I don't understand a lot of the time what he's trying to do, and I think that's a worry. If you see a system and you see a certain identity, and you're like, okay, it's not quite working, but I get what you're trying to do. I get that there's some sort of plan in place. And I don't see that. I don't see what that plan is.
Do you think that comes from, a little bit of lack of experience of running a full team just for himself,
absolutely.
And running a team of coaches who can get his identity out there?
They often don't look that coached, and that worries me. If there is something, you look at Reading today, and they're not good, they're not pretty, but they're well drilled and well coached, and they know exactly what they're trying to do whenever they get the ball. I don't feel like that about Fulham.
The amount of time, it obviously comes from their patterns of play. Every single player knows when the ball breaks down, they all know
where they're going to be, where they're going, and all of that. And I don't see that with Fulham, and that, I think, is what worries me the most. Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much for watching at Full Time here at the Old Suffolk Punch. A New Year's hangover for Fulham, hopefully one we can bounce back from in the FA Cup against Aston Villa on Saturday. We'll see you soon. Happy New Year. You Whites.
You Whites.